There comes a time in every young geezer's life when it's time to have the talk. You know that one I'm talking about. It's time to talk about...
Hey everyone, this is Nate from Geezer Skate, and I'm coming at you today with a great new video about an old school piece of equipment. It's an often overlooked one, but you know what? It's totally essential for the old school vibe, and actually it has really practical applications to your setup. It's a small but mighty piece of hardware that was prevalent back in the 80s, but really fizzled out with the death of rails and protective equipment in the 90s. And now that rails and other protective equipment have come back to their rightful place on the bottom of your board, it's time to bring back this essential piece of hardware. What am I talking about? The sex bolt, otherwise known as a Chicago bolt or a carpenter bolt. It's known by many names. I've always heard it referred to as a sex bolt. For those who don't know, a sex bolt consists of two parts. There is the top part that is internally threaded, and then there's the bottom part, which is externally threaded. The sex bolts we're going to use for this setup, I obtained from Rad Rails. Check them out. Great little company based in Portland, Oregon, and they actually make them there too, which I love. Not only are you supporting a skater-owned company, but you're also supporting a skater-owned company that makes their own stuff. I'm all about supporting a skater-owned company, and I love what they're doing, and I think you should check them out too. They've got rails as well in a host of colors, as well as the sex bolts. And what I really appreciate is that they tell you here on their little card that the sex bolts come in what size drill bit to use. 7 32 inch. That is perfect. I really appreciate that. That'll take all the guesswork out of this. Modern rails come with a set of wood screws that they just have you screw into the bottom of your deck. And since I did this old school retro setup recently, which I love, this thing rides like a dream. It's so much fun. But I need to go full retro. I'm only half retro right now, and by adding these sex bolts, I'll be full retro. So what's the problem with wood screws anyways? I mean, they hold them in, don't they? Great question. Yes, technically they do hold the rails in place to the bottom of your board, and as far as I know, they really don't slip out when you're board sliding. But you know what they could do? They could crack your board. They could even delaminate it. Well, that sucks. Yes, it does suck. And we want to try to avoid that. And one of the ways you can avoid that is with the handy sex bolt. The sex bolt, because it goes actually all the way through your board, forms a much tighter bond than the traditional wood screw. And because you're screwing directly through rather than screwing a wood screw just halfway, which actually pushes through, which actually kind of splits the wood as it's going through with the pointed tip. This is a much safer alternative to keep the structural integrity of your board intact. Because you're going to use a drill bit to screw actually directly through the wood, a much less chance of actually damaging your board that way. And because we're going to be using some power tools today, I'm not going to complete this inside at the kitchen table because I would probably wind up a single man after my wife found out I was drilling at the table. So we're going to go into the backyard to complete this part of the video. Bolted and ready for action. These things are on for good now. You could hang off the side of a building and not fall off. Well, as long as your fingers keep holding on. These are not going to give away though. Holy cow, those are definitely in there now. Learned a couple things on this though, so unfortunately, sometimes experience is the best teacher and sometimes you gotta learn the hard way. I need to work on my technique because unfortunately I did crack the board a bit here. So unfortunately, as you can see right here, definitely cracked it as it came through the other side. I need to work on, I don't know, maybe I need to drill a smaller pilot hole to start with, or maybe get a different piece of board. I had a piece of wood underneath it to catch the drill as it went through, but maybe I need a different kind of board, a thicker board or something. So I'm bummed at myself for doing that, but I just want to let you all know from my mistakes, so hopefully you won't make these mistakes when you're doing this yourself. And for those who do have had successful experience doing this, please let us know in the comments down below what you do differently to help ensure a successful sex bolting. Also, another thing, for some reason I stripped one of the bolts, so I don't know how I did that. So now I've got to order one, and until I get it in, I've got a hole where I can see the sky through the bottom of my board. Actually, the ground through the bottom of my board. So I'm bummed about that too, but you know, all in all, I really like the way it looks now that it's finished. Check that out. I'm glad I gave it a try. Now I know some things, and next time it'll be a heck of a lot better. Well, I hope you learned some things today. Check out one of these other videos about old school content, old school skating, and old school skaters. Till next time, keep skating and stop aging.